Time for the press review now with Antonia. Of course, she's going to start with the end of the Olympics, the 2024 Olympics and Paralympics all over. It's fair to say many people in France are going to miss it. I'm going to miss it. Saw a little bit of the marathon going through the streets of Paris yesterday. What are the papers saying about it then, Antonia?
It's fair to say that today, this morning in France, it's a shower of sentimentality, this collective pathos at our summer of sport coming to an end. Let's have a look at a couple of front pages. Le Télégramme has the front page. On here you can see the image of the Olympic flame and the headline is Paris réussi. Réussi means succeeded. There's a double meaning there. Paris, as we know, Paris. Also, Paris is a gamble in French, so it's a gamble that paid off. This, as France did exceptionally well in the medal table, and also the Games were considered much of an organisational success in many ways. In Aujourd'hui en France, you've also got a spectacular image of the Olympic flame, and the headline reads, Pride as legacy. That's this idea of this national pride, this shared emotion is the positive legacy these games could leave behind. And L'Équipe strikes a very sad note, the end. It says, and you've got a statue of one of the statues from the Tuileries Gardens seemingly crying just in front of the Olympic flame, knowing, of course, it's going to be extinguished. So an extremely emotional day. Just before we move on, France Info, for a piece of good news straight out the gate, has this piece on applications already climbing, already 20% above last year for certain parasport clubs for the enrolment this September. So perhaps a fresh galvanising of parasport clubs in France as a result of these games.
Yeah, I love that picture in the front of L'Équipe. It sums it up perfectly because, let's be honest, we've seen a bit of a version of Paris that many found unrecognisable, shall we say, partly because it's friendly, warm, just festive atmosphere. And of course, Antonia, that is definitely going to last, isn't it?
Well, let's be realistic, Stuart. I'm not sure we can count on that. Aujourd'hui en France has this cartoon. There's a gentleman saying to his friend, it would be nice if this good mood that has dominated during the Olympics continued. And the lady responds to him, it's going to be difficult. The Parisians are back from holidays. Of course, Parisians haven't got the best reputation for warmth and welcome.
Very true. We'll move on. Let's move on to something completely different. Elections coming up late October in Georgia, widely being painted as being fought on foreign policy, a choice between Russia and Europe. What are the press saying about it then?
Well, it's important to understand that Georgia is on, in some ways, two tracks. It got official EU candidate status 10 months ago, but its current government, not its president, but its government, are veering pro-Russian, and it's the parliament that's up for election in October. Le Figaro did this interview with the president, who's extremely pro-European. She said this upcoming election is a referendum on their pro-European future. And of course, that pro-European future was cast into doubt earlier this year over a very controversial law that drew mass protests about classing civil society groups and independent media that received any foreign funding as foreign agents. And that is, of course, a law that was almost carbon copied from a similar Russian law. Le Monde has this piece about the campaign that's just been launched by this Georgian Dream Party. They're this very pro-Russian party that is currently in government. And some of their promises, if re-elected, are quite alarming. One of them is a plan to ban the main opposition party, the National United Movement, as well as any of its successors or affiliates, claiming that this party serves criminal objectives. They're also promising a huge crackdown on LGBT rights, including calling for a ban in the constitution on same-sex adoption, same-sex civil partnerships. And it's fair to say that Georgia is on two different tracks, and it's hard to know which exact issues this election will be fought on. As you said, Stuart, the press in our Western countries is really dressing it up as this referendum of Russia or Europe. Politico, however, has a different take. They're making this point that this idea of an existential Europe versus Russia election, that's certainly what opposition, what pro-European opposition are trying to dress it up as that's the choice. However, this article argues that may not be wise on the part of the opposition. Although 80% of Georgians, according to recent polls, are pro-European, do want to join the EU, that may not be what they vote on. Foreign policy is often not what people vote on, and it may be much more likely they vote on things like the cost of living.
We shall see. Now, finally, Antonia is going to tell us about an extremely rare and ancient amphibian. It is known or nicknamed, dubbed, if you like, the snot otter, and the push to prevent its disappearance.
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked me about that, Stuart. So this is a piece on the BBC.
Yeah.
This is the amphibian in question, the snot otter. So across the world, we're seeing dams being removed in places where they no longer serve a purpose. That allows ecosystems to recover. It allows organisms to access food more easily and breed more easily. However, the dam removal itself can be quite destructive and disruptive and can harm a lot of the animals. So in this river in North Carolina, in advance of a dam removal, divers got all kitted out, dived 5 metres below surface in the dead of the night to find as many of these specimens as they could in order to remove them from the river, put them elsewhere where a dam has already been removed to safety. Let's have a quick look at one of the reintroductions. That's one being reintroduced in another safer river. Now, it's not an easy task. These animals can be up to 75 centimetres long, but they're very well camouflaged. They're covered in a sort of blotchy, mottled skin and a slimy protective mucus. And scientists say that these have been wiped out up to 80% in the United States of their original distribution. Scientists also say amphibians have been extremely hard hit by the loss of biodiversity, and they're an underrepresented cause, you might say. And scientists say that these little green things, these snot otters, these charismatic species have to be the flag bearers for all of these key amphibians and their ecosystems.
Give them little handkerchiefs, that'll solve the problems, won't it? Antonia, thanks very much with the press review here on France 24. A lot more coming up very shortly, including my special perspective guest, so just stay with us for that if you can.